After Matt Gaetz withdrew his name from consideration to become the Attorney General of the United States, I feel like the mainstream media's coverage of not only who would be Donald Trump's AG, but really the rest of his cabinet nominees kind of died down a bit, or the nominees weren't held to the standard that they should be. They were held to the Matt Gaetz standard. Now, of course, it is difficult to reach that level of despicable, even if you're a Pete Hegseth, a Tulsi Gabbard, or an RFK Jr., but the media doesn't really seem to care anymore or want to hold Republican senators who are going to confirm these horrible individuals who are also horribly unqualified to these incredibly powerful positions. But that kind of changed today in an interview between Republican Senator Katie Britt, yes, the scary lady from the State of the Union response to President Biden 2 years ago, and Jake Tapper, who called her out for the ridiculous cabinet nominees that she plans to vote yes on. And when Katie Britt was caught in some lies about these crazy cabinet nominees, she kind of melted down. And we are going to get into all of that. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video. And if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way and it really means the world to me. Now let's get into this interview with Jake Tapper.
From Alabama, Katie Britt. Senator, thanks so much for joining. Let's start with the wildfires if we can, because obviously I know you and all of us who are not affected are looking out to California with such empathy and concern. These wildfires could be the costliest in American history. Thousands of buildings destroyed, more than 100,000 people under evacuation orders. President Biden says the federal government will cover 100% of the initial disaster response costs. Do you think President-elect should honor that pledge? And is Congress prepared to act if more aid is needed to help those impacted by the fires?
Yeah, look, well, first, Jake, my heart and my prayers go out to every single family affected, those who have lost life, who have lost property. Having been through a natural disaster myself, you really don't even know where to start. We lost our house, our things, and it's such a disorienting moment for you. And so I think what the people of California need is us standing united, letting them know we are praying for them, we are lifting them up, and we stand ready to support. When it comes to the Republican conference, we actually had this conversation this week. Certainly understand the needs of the people of California, and we'll continue to learn more. I was texting with a friend who has been affected by this. I was texting last night with former Senator LaFonza Butler, getting an idea of what's going on the ground, and we will be ready to act. And so I know that President Trump certainly stands for the people across this nation, and will make sure that the people of California have what they need.
Let's turn to Congress right now. The Senate voted this week to advance your legislation, the Lake and Riley Act, which would require federal authorities to detain undocumented immigrants who have been charged with, arrested for, or convicted of burglary, theft, or shoplifting. You have support from some Democrats. Other Democrats say the way the bill's written, they believe could result in thousands of people being detained indefinitely simply for being accused of a crime without actually having been charged or convicted, violating due process rights. Are they wrong?
Yeah, look, the Lake and Riley Act is ultimately going to save lives. It is a common sense piece of legislation, and it actually puts the talk that we've been having over the last 4 years into action. Jake, there's been no more litigated issue over the last 4 years than President Biden and Vice President Harris's open border policies. It is my belief that the American people entered a verdict on that on November 5th, saying we are ready for secure borders. We want our streets and our communities to be safe and secure. This is the first step in doing this. This is a targeted piece of legislation that goes directly to the heart of the tragedy that occurred with Lake and Riley. As you well know, Friday would have been her 23rd birthday. She should still be with us. If this piece of legislation had been enacted, she would. And so Americans are ready for common sense solutions, and they're ready for us to stop talking and actually yield results. I'm encouraged by the number of Democrats that have come on board and those who have voiced their support for this piece of legislation. I think as we continue to debate this and talk about the merits of it this week, it'll garner more support. And as you know, Jake, it passed the House not once, but twice. Last year in last Congress, it passed with 37 Democrats supporting. This year, it had 48 Democrats supporting it. So it's a bipartisan piece of legislation that is 60% of the House. I expect it to get 60% or more in the Senate.
I'm sure there is wide consensus approval for deporting violent undocumented immigrants 100%. But what I've heard concerns expressed about is indefinitely detaining those who are merely suspected of committing nonviolent crimes, not formally charged. Is that not a concern?
Yeah, so Jake, this is actually charged, arrested, or convicted. And if you look at this, we have 11 million illegal immigrants in this nation. Of that, 7.8 million of those are actually in removal proceedings. Of the 7.8 that are in removal proceedings, Jake, 1.4 million of those have been given final orders of removal, meaning they have been given due process, and we have said it is time for you to leave. My question is, I've heard a number of things about the number of migrants that this would affect. I think more recently was said. My question is, I wonder how many of those who have created theft-related crimes are actually have already been given their final orders of removal. I've asked for those answers and certainly look forward to them. I think at the end of the day, if you don't commit a crime, the Laken Riley Act, you're not subject to it. So I think we should start there. I think Democrats have to wake up and realize that Americans are sick of excuses and they're ready for action. And as long as you don't commit a crime, this doesn't apply to you. And I think people would agree that if you do commit a crime, you should go to the front of the line when it comes to detention and removal. Of those numbers that I talked about, only 1% of illegal immigrants are actually being detained, less than 1% of those in removal proceedings. So I think, Jake, it's about 40,000 that are being detained. Of those 40,000 being detained, 15,000 of them have committed crimes. I think the American public would take a look at this and say, yes, if you came illegally and then you chose to commit a crime against Americans, whether that's property or life, that we are saying, yeah, you go to the front of the line when it comes to detention and deportation.
You're on the Senate Judiciary Committee. Attorney General nominee Pam Bondi will testify before your committee later this week. You have said she has your support and she will help restore the Department of Justice to become one, quote, driven by blind justice, not blind partisan politics, unquote. We should note, as a member of Trump's legal team in 2020, she falsely claimed that Trump had won Pennsylvania, which he had not. She spread baseless claims about widespread cheating by Democrats, about fake ballots. That is partisan politics, what she said in 2020. That is not justice.
Yeah, Jake, I mean, look at what's happened under the Biden administration. We have people in these offices who have chosen to go after American citizens, who have chosen to weaponize the justice system in a number of ways. When I talked with Pam Bondi, she committed to me to getting back to doing the job of the people, to getting back to doing what the department was created to do. So whether we're talking about the AG, whether we're talking about the FBI, whether they're talking about the Department of Defense, people want these agencies, these departments to actually work for the American people. Pam is committed to that. I think you will see that. What President Trump has done is he has selected people who are willing to not move as business as usual, but yet are ready for action. They understand his vision for the nation. They understand the mandate that was given on November 5th, and they understand that time for talk is gone and time for results and action is now. And so I think people are actually sick of the weaponization. We had this conversation. We talked about politics not being part of the process of what you do in the department. She is committed to that, and I think she's going to do an excellent job of returning the department to the work of the American people, and I am excited for her hearing. I'm certainly excited. It'll be my very first hearing as a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee. We've got a lot of great nominees on the Hill this week, and they'll have the opportunity not only to make their case to those on that committee, Jake, but they'll have their opportunity to make their case to the American people of why they are best suited to move President Trump's agenda forward.
But why would you think somebody who's willing to lie about the election results in Pennsylvania is going to restore integrity in the Justice Department the way that you are calling for?
Look, Jake, I've had very direct conversations with each and every one of these nominees that I've had the opportunity to sit down with. I take my duty as a United States Senator seriously. Article 2, Section 2 mandates that I do. We have an obligation both to the American people and to the president to ask these tough questions. I ask that question very directly. And with each and every nominee, the answers that I have been given with them has satisfied me that they're going to move forward in that direction. So I'm sure she'll have an opportunity to answer this in front of the American people. But the answer she has given me, most definitely, she is not only qualified, but she's ready to move forward in a way that the American people deserve.
So you've said that you asked Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer twice last year to schedule a Senate briefing on threats from terrorist groups such as ISIS, but he never even responded.
Yeah.
We obviously saw the ISIS-inspired terrorist attack on New Year's Day in New Orleans. How concerned are you about the potential for more terrorist attacks here at home?
Significantly. As you know, we lost an Alabamian in that attack. We lost both a young man who went to the University of Alabama and a young man who was born and raised here in the state. When I talked with his parents, with Drew Dawson's parents, the heartbreak from his mother was unimaginable. She said, "Never did I believe that my son would be killed by a terrorist." And when you rewind to where this came from, in my opinion, this is a direct result of Biden's failed policies across the world. When you look at the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, we know that that created a vacuum. It created a vacuum that allowed ISIS-K to continue to flourish. Our conversation, or even, kind of start and flourish, our conversations surrounding that and our request of Senator Schumer was make sure that we understand this so that we can do everything that we need to. This is also right after Director Wray said that, he saw blinking lights everywhere he turned. Senator Lindsey Graham had asked him that in a Senate Judiciary Committee hearing, talking about 9/11 and all of the signs we missed, and that was his response. There are blinking lights everywhere we turn. When you take the combination of these things, this is something we have to take seriously. We cannot allow these things to happen on American soil. Getting answers and understanding how we equipped our law enforcement, our FBI, and others with the tools they need to combat this is critically important. We're going to keep pushing. But it was incredibly disappointing that Senator Schumer chose to not allow us to have those. It was clearly in the midst of the election cycle, and I can't help but think that part of that obviously was to keep that information from leaking out.
We have to continue to hold these folks' feet to the fire, because if we don't follow up on every cabinet nominee, they're kind of just going to skate under the radar. I feel like there's been barely any conversation about Kash Patel anymore either. One of, if not the most dangerous nominees that Donald Trump has put up. Talking about his enemies list, talking about the ways that he was already in incredible danger to our national security in the first Trump administration. Someone who doesn't need any direction from Donald Trump because he knows what he wants and he'll go seek it out. Prosecuting Liz Cheney or Adam Kinzinger or Jack Smith for that matter. That is what Kash Patel is going to be focusing on doing, and that's why I'm so glad that Jake Tapper is pointing out how crazy it is to suggest that any of these people will depoliticize these institutions rather than making them more political with the way that they operate. And we have to continue to talk about that, especially with these cabinet nominees. And we're going to on this show every single day. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button. You can leave a like on this video. And if you stuck around at the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.